I'm Dina. I'm 16 years old, and I go to school with a bodyguard. If you only knew how annoying it is. And all because of the fact that my father is obsessed with safety. He says the threat could be around any corner. I even have the right of freedom to give, and I'm tired of it all. In general, my father himself has been working as a bodyguard for a very rich businessman for many years. Probably as long as I can remember. I grew up without a mother. She left us and ran away somewhere. My father says that she has a different family for a long time, and she did not run away from us, but rather from a problem family. My father's profession has greatly affected our way of life. At first, when my parents got married, my father worked in the special forces, but after one special operation against terrorists, where he lost a loyal friend, my father vowed to leave his job. The salary there was good, and my father did not agree to anything less. He was looking for a job for a long time, until one day Uncle Cole offered him a temporary part-time job as a bodyguard. At first, Father was squeamish about this work, saying that he had previously protected the national security of the country and now someone's fifth point or something. But since it was temporary and with very good salary, he agreed. I've stayed there ever since. He won the trust of the chief, several times offered his chest, and miraculously it was not a scratch. That businessman liked it. He gave me a raise just to keep my dad working for him. But there were disadvantages. Dad was rarely home, and when he came, I heard they bite Mom. That's not because job is dangerous, because the daughter is growing up without a father and so on and on. In short, my mother called me and my father problematic and flew away. Where, I don't know, and don't want to know. Only the rumors are getting around that everything is fine with her. Well, okay. So much the better for her. After she left, my father looked more concerned than I'd ever seen him before. I thought it was all because of the breakup with my mother, and he was thinking about me saying, "Who will watch me now? Who will look after? I'm an adult," I thought. "That's right," my dad would say, and I still didn't understand him. Well, then I got into trouble. I stayed at a friend's house and went home late. Dad was always at work. I didn't notice the stranger following me. He walked like a shadow for almost a few blocks, and as soon as I turned a corner, he attacked me. I screamed so much in fear that I almost lost my voice. To my surprise, my father came running out of nowhere and broke his jaw with a single blow. He immediately whined and ran away. I looked at my father in a state of shock and did not understand where he came from. I was released from work early, as the nobility. Naturally, my dad and I were scared to death. I stopped going to school for 2 weeks, and Dad promised to take care of everything. So from that moment on, it was decided to hire a bodyguard for me. I was against it. I knew that I had experienced a terrible situation, but personal security, it was too much. But the father insisted on his own and personally selected the guard. The experience still has. I was surprised when I saw how many people consider themselves security. In general, in the end, I was assigned a bodyguard. His name was Steve. It's a stupid name, but I didn't choose it. It turned out that he was doing a good job. He was well built, but he didn't seem to be able to talk. He just looked around and followed me everywhere. I went to a normal school and imagined the faces of the people around me. All of a sudden, I got a bodyguard. Even the wealthiest students didn't have security. My first day of school seemed like hell. As soon as I walked through the school gates, I became the center for jokes. Local trolls shouted phrases like, "This is Dina. She suddenly appeared something valuable." And "Who is this stupid guy, your boyfriend?" And "Can he talk or what?" And "Why is he in a suit for a funeral?" "Where did you buy a guy?" Oh, I got even angrier with every sentence. To my regret, the school management went to my father's meeting and agreed that this stupid person would accompany me everywhere. At first, my classmates took pictures of me everywhere. Then they took pictures with me, or rather with us. But every time my classmates came up to me, he stood between us like a wall and didn't move. And when our boys decided to imitate him and threw apples at him, he caught almost everything and crushed it in his hand. The juice spurted out in all directions, and with a look, he made it clear that the next time their head would be in his palm. From that moment on, everyone avoided me. Hell, I even went to the bathroom with him. He was going into the women's bathroom and waiting for me right outside the cab door. My screams are ignored. This was already lawlessness. What the hell? Who does he think he is? Oh, how he infuriated me. Don't you eat shit or pee? I shouted at him on the way home, but he was unwavering. A week later, my classmate Shane was having a birthday party at her house, and I was invited. But don't come with your idiot because he scares everyone, she said to me in a whisper. Yes, I would only try to talk to my father. Well, I was hoping in vain. My father just yelled on the phone. What do you think? I didn't hire him for beauty. It also ensures your safety. It was useless to argue, so I came up with a plan. Pretending to be asleep, I ran out the window. Steve was standing guard outside the door. I really didn't know if he was even sleeping or not. I ran out the window and planned to be back in a couple of hours, so no one would have noticed. My friends came to pick me up in a car. My plan worked. Yeah. Within 30 minutes, I was having fun at Shane's house, drinking cocktails and dancing. Matt came to the party. This was a boy I liked very much. For the first time, I was glad that we were from different schools, because if he saw my shame with a bodyguard, I couldn't bear it. After a couple of glasses of punch, it hit me in the head. I plucked up the courage and decided to dance with him. It was unforgettable. My head was spinning with euphoria, and I couldn't believe I was dancing with him. Our bodies were inches apart. Every touch of our hands made me shudder, and my heart was pounding in my chest. Matt wanted to kiss me, and we reached for each other. And then Matt jerked away from me. It was like an electric shock. I watched in shock as my stupid bodyguard throws Matt aside and everyone moves away from me as if I stink. What? How dare you? I hate you! Get out of here! I shouted in tears. Steve took my hand and pulled me into the car. I resisted and was angry with him. I couldn't believe he'd embarrassed me like this. When I got home, the first thing I did was call my father and tell him everything. But guess what? The only response I got was that I broke the rules and ran away from home. I haven't spoken to my father since, or to anyone else. I feel so bad about all this. What would you advise me to do?
My uncle is a criminal mastermind. Have you ever heard of thieves-in-law? Do you know anything about them? I'll tell you about my uncle. He was one of them. My name is Anzor. I can't tell you my uncle's name because he is a person of a separate social stratum. I'll just call him A. So my uncle, A, as I said, is the leader of an organized criminal group in a small, not very popular country. He was born and raised there. Since childhood, he grew up a quick boy. My uncle was able to negotiate with everyone, even adults, and often got into trouble for his ambitions. When he entered the school, almost immediately became a lookout. Despite his age, he managed to gain authority among the older students. Over time, he formed a whole group of worthy people around him. The task was simple: to prevent strangers from entering their territory, that is, the school's territory, and to resolve conflicts with those who wanted to. And sometimes they were engaged in dark deeds. For example, working off material values, money, watches, jewelry from school children. I was told that the local district inspector knew Uncle A, by name and by sight. They met so often at the station. At first, he was put on the list of difficult teenagers, and when he somehow got into high school, he almost stopped attending school at all. His teachers predicted that he would live behind bars. Almost, as it turned out, he did not finish school. He was expelled when he was involved in a number of crimes. They may have been small, but this was only the beginning. After he was crowned in another country, his name shone in the number of contract killings. Then things got more serious. As you know, all groups are at war with each other. By the way, among thieves-in-law, there is the most important thief, and for this sweet spot, too, sometimes there is a struggle. So in one of these wars, we lost 2 relatives, who of course stood for Uncle A. The other members of the family did not particularly aggravate the lifestyle we were forced to live. The most unfair thing is that if one of your relatives is officially crowned a thief, then the fate of his environment is automatically predetermined. As for me, I am against any violence. I like art, and I wanted to go to university to study art history or design. But I couldn't live a normal life like other relatives. We had to move frequently, make no friends, and always be on the lookout. Although we have always lived in affluence, no amount of money would buy the women in my family a good night's sleep. Well, my uncle, as I said, was very ambitious. When he was sent to prison to serve time for another crime, there was a riot on his initiative. Big people, officials reacted to this, and some of them paid with their lives. Unfortunately, the bodies of the dead were not handed over to the authorities for several days. Since my uncle had influence over the prisoners, many obeyed him and followed his orders. The riot continued until they were stormed. What was seen outside the prison shocked many representatives of the authorities and ordinary people. It turned out that my uncle was not poor at all and lived behind bars as if he had his dacha. He had a great apartment, near his wife, everything for comfort. Naturally, information about this in a moment spread across the media and in the network, and the proof of everything was in the photos. For example, at a well-laid table. Naturally, he was tried for mutiny, as well as his aide's allies. He was given a long sentence for violating a number of criminal codes. My uncle went to prison again, but this time not for so long. Then he was released due to illness. He was diagnosed with cancer of the last stage, on the basis of which he was released from prison and immediately left the country. People who doubted the authenticity of the medical report received official confirmation from people in high positions. Everything was stated in the press, so it took several more years until the deception was revealed. During this time, my uncle managed to hide, allegedly behind the screen of another crime in another country, where he is still serving his sentence. In fact, he just received protection from the authorities and everything is good for him. And in the small country where he made a mess, everyone involved in my uncle's medical history is now sitting in the dock. There are very, very big shots. Even their status did not prevent them from being brought before the law. So that's why I'm telling you all this. I love my family, and even my cruel uncle, A. I never found out why he chose this path, because he grew up in an ordinary family among an environment that would not hurt a fly. Despite his connections and the rules by which he and all of us lived, I knew that he was very caring. Even though his expression of love was only a glance in your direction, I knew he believed that he was much kinder than he seemed. I just couldn't afford much. I often asked my parents why he did this and that, why he killed someone or broke the law. My father always said that no matter how rebellious you are, you can at least always take care of your family. He will never let anyone hurt us. But why he chose this path and way of life, I do not know, my father said. As I mentioned earlier, with such relatives, our fate is determined automatically. Studying at the University of the Arts will remain at the level of dreams. I must admit that I am very nervous now because I recently had a birthday, which means that I have grown up and am ready to continue the business in which the whole family is involved. My uncle gave me my first assignment. Tomorrow, I have to give a round sum of money to one person. Everything should happen in a public place, but without any living soul paying attention. I must become invisible. Of course, I was worried. When asked what if I went to jail, my uncle jokingly said that it was considered an extra bonus, and there was nothing wrong with it. Or maybe he wasn't joking at all. Who knows? Do you have any such relatives? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, because there are still a lot of interesting stories.